The Python return statement is a key component of functions, and for that matter, methods as well. So usually we call a Python function and it does its thing. It executes the block of code as part of the function and then it continues through the rest of the program. However, there are times when we need to get information back from the function. This is also known as returning information back to the caller when we call upon the function. So technically speaking, a return statement, which is a statement by the way, where the print is a function, the return statement terminates the execution of the function and sends the return value back to the caller code, so you cannot type any code after the return statement. And in red we see the user ID function, which is made up of parameters profit1 and profit2, and then we add these together, profit1 plus profit2, and then we return total underscore profit. And when we call upon the function in the second set of code, we print total underscore profit to the screen. However, it's easier to understand when having a look and running the code itself, so let's jump into PyCharm and have a look at that. So going back to our previous example, when we had a look at parameters and arguments, we have a defined function called profit, and because we have the print function within the block of code as part of the function definition, it prints fine and we see the output of 70. It adds 30 plus 40 together. But we do not necessarily need to print the output every time we run our function. It could be a function that does a specific task, but you do not need to necessarily print the output to the console. So we do not always need this statement here. So let's remove the print line from our block of code, which defines the profit function. Now, if we run the file, we get nothing, which again may be fine in some use cases. We may run this function in lots of places in our code and we do not necessarily need to print the output. But let's say there's a specific time somewhere in our code we need to print the output to the console. So let's use our print function over here. Let's print it to the console and see what happens. Let's run the file again. So previously we had nothing and this time we get some output, but it's not the output as expected. We get a none. So it's telling us there is no output from the function. And this is where we need a return statement, because we need to return the information or the output of whatever the function did, whether it's a value or some other object. We need to return the output to the caller. So without the return statement, we're not able to print anything. So this is where we add the return statement. So the keyword is return, and what will we return is we will return the total underscore profit, so the value of profit underscore 1 plus profit underscore 2, which is stored in total underscore profit. So let's double click this. And as already explained, once you specify the return function, you're not able to specify any more code as part of this function block. Nothing else will run. And let's run the file. And this time we can see we get the output we expected, which is the value 70. So when a function takes an argument like it is here, it's taking two arguments, 30 and 40, and it performs some kind of operation. So we can see over here is adding the two numbers together, and then it returns the value or the object. As if it did not have this statement to return the value, there's no value being returned. There's no value being sent back to us. So although we gave it some arguments, so without this line, we did not ask it to return anything back to us, but adding this line in, now it's returning something back to us, which is a value. And this value that the function returns to the caller is known as the return value. And all Python functions have a return value, whether that's explicit or implicit. So in effect, it's returning the function's result back to the caller, the output, the result. And when I say back to the caller, the back to the caller part is this part here, where we are printing it to the console. So we are calling the function profit with our arguments inside it. And as we have seen, if we do not use the return value, there is still a return value, which is none. And this will be the case if we do not use the return statement, or even if we do use a return statement with nothing specified after it. So let's remove total underscore profit and run the file again. We see again it's come back to none. And we do not need to directly print this to the console. We could put the result inside a variable. So now we are storing the output of these arguments, and what happens to these arguments is determined by the function definition. And now we are printing total underscore profit to the console. So let's run the file. And of course, I've removed it from my return statement. So let's add it in again and run the file. And that's it for this video. That's a high level overview of how return statements work in conjunction with functions.